Today I'm in the mood for bashing through some classic Mick Ronson era Bowie. The song is Cracked Actor from 1973's Aladdin Sane album, and I think this one is up there amongst my favourite Ronson stuff. It contains some great riffs, and what I'm going to do is play through a bit of the song for you. I'll show you how it's played, and I'm also going to talk about how to get the sound and the gear that I'm using in this video. So let's get started. For the intro riff, we're simply bashing on an open E chord. So just your regular open E chord down in the open position, and emphasizing the lower notes in that chord, I think, so the E5 power chord element of that shape. But sometimes you can hear some of the higher notes coming through as well. I don't think you need to be too fussy. One of the things I love about the original recording is Ronson's obviously hitting this chord really hard, and you can just hear it bending slightly out of tune as he hits it. And he's also clearly turned up really loud, because in the gaps between those chords you can hear the guitar starting to feed back. And to create those gaps in between the chords, you're going to need to use some muting. So I'm actually muting with both hands here. So my fretting hand is releasing pressure, and I'm using my picking hand just to rest on the strings down here to create that syncopated rhythm. So we've got a long chord and then a short chord, which is where I'm using the muting. Then we've got what I suppose you could describe as the main riff, which is the one that goes like this. And a great riff, but quite a simple one. You find this a lot with classic riffs. There's nothing too complicated to play here. It's based on an ascending series of power chords. So we're going from an E power chord, or an E5, that's just the open 6th string, and 2 at the second fret on the A string. And then we're moving to an F power chord, that's fret 1 and 3, and then just moving that up 2 frets to a G power chord, or a G5. And what we're doing on the E is we're adding in this note here, this C sharp, to create that classic kind of rock and roll Chuck Berry thing. And then we're going to the F chord, and it's on an upbeat. We're pushing into that chord change. And again, adding in that extra note. And here we're going to really have to stretch up to the 5th fret with the little finger. This is quite a big stretch, so you might want to bring your thumb round behind the back of the neck. That just opens up the hand and seems to facilitate that stretch a little bit. It's easier on a Les Paul than it would be on a Strat or a guitar with a longer scale length, but it's just about doable, this stretch. And then we're moving up to the G power chord, and once again adding in that extra note. this whole riff has got a nice swing to it. It's that kind of glam rock swing feel. So I'm using down up strokes for this riff. So 1, 2, 3. And just got that relaxed swing there. You could play the riff with all down strokes if you prefer, but down and up seems to work best for me. And once again, there's some more of this muting to create those syncopations, those little rests. So just releasing pressure with my fretting hand there. And at the top of the song, this riff is played twice, but on the repeat, it ends on a B chord. So I'm just playing this B power chord up at the 7th fret, and that's what takes us into the verse. So on the repeat, it sounds like this. Next is the verse, and this is quite a simple 4-chord sequence. It starts on F, bar of that, bar of A minor, a bar of E, and a bar of D. So simple enough. I'm just playing my F as a bar chord and then A minor as a bar chord at the 5th fret, open E and open D. You've got some other options there. You could play all the chords down in the open position, or you could make all of them bar chords if you prefer. And like with a lot of Bowie stuff, it's a simple chord progression, but the actual harmony is a little bit unusual and slippery. And even just defining what key this song is in is slightly tricky. I mean, I've not done a full theoretical analysis of this tuning, but it starts with that E, F and G chord progression, so I'm not kind of sure what key that is. That opening riff feels like it's maybe in the key of G, but with a couple of extra chords thrown in. This verse part is maybe in the key of A minor, or is it A major? I'm not really sure. So it's quite an interesting one. I'd be interested to hear if any of you have got thoughts on that. But that's the basic verse chord progression. I'm playing this very simply, all down strokes, quarter notes, just releasing pressure with my fretting hand slightly between each of those chord hits. And then it goes round again. And on the repeat, it just stays on the E chord. It doesn't go to D, and that builds up and takes you into the chorus. And what I was doing is just adding in the 7th there at the end of that second bar of E, just to kind of build up into the chorus. So you can make it an E7, or even if you flatten your pinky down across the 3rd fret on the top 2 strings, you get that 7 sharp 9 sound, which is quite nice. On the recording, the guitars are at least double tracked. There might well be more layers of guitar, and one of the guitars seems to be playing those chords in more of a sustained kind of a way. So that's another option that you've got. Next, we've got the chorus. So this is a descending series of chords. It's based on B minor up at the 7th fret, going down to A, and then G, and then down 1 fret to F sharp. So quite a common descending sequence of chords. The chorus seems to be in the key of B minor, and this chord progression, what's known as an Andalusian cadence, I believe, which is a fun fact for you. So starting on the B minor, playing that in the same rhythm as I was using for the verse, then going to the A, and we've got this move. So it's an A sus4 to an A chord. So if you hold down your A bar chord and then move your little finger over to the next string, you got this D note in there. That's the 4th, so you get that sus4 sound. And then lift up your pinky to go to the A. And what I'm actually doing here is playing 3-note shapes here. I'm muting the other strings. I think that's the cleanest way to do this. So I've got the power chord, actually muting the 4th string, and then I've got this D note, and then going to the major chord, but still got the D string muted there. And that's easy enough to achieve if you just relax pressure with your bowing finger. So rather than pressing down firmly like you would when you're playing a full bar chord, you're just releasing pressure just enough to mute the strings, and then you've got that kind of a sound. And then we're taking it down to a G and to the F sharp, doing that sus4 move again. I think that works as a solid chorus part, but it could well be that with these different guitar layers, you've got some guitars doing some slightly different things. And in particular, it could be that one of the guitars is just playing some single notes and emphasizing that sus4 sound. So this thing. So maybe one of the guitars is going. So have a listen closely and see if you agree with me, but that's certainly an option that you've got. Those are the main riffs then, and if you wanted to, you could try playing some lead guitar stuff, a bit like I did at the top of this video. And what sounds a little bit like lead guitar on this tune, mostly I think, is Bowie on harmonica. And I think the story is that Bowie recorded his harmonica distorted through one of Ronson's Marshalls to give it that kind of lead guitar sound. So what I did when I played through earlier in the video was just to try to play some of those harmonica licks, and then I just went off and did a few things of my own. But I started off with this idea. So a little kind of bluesy idea. I'm thinking G minor pentatonic here. And if you start up here on this D note, and then you've got this note here, 11th fret on the second string, just bending that slightly sharp. It's that bluesy minor to major third bend, and then coming back to G. I can play around with some riffs like that, and you can experiment with some other lead guitar stuff if you want to. I was playing over this opening riff. So over those chords, I mean, you can really think in terms of E or G, so E minor pentatonic, G major pentatonic, which is really the same notes, or blues scale stuff would work as well. So certainly E minor pentatonic. All of that stuff works nicely. It sounds good to me to go from perhaps E minor pentatonic over the E and the F, and then when you hit the G chord you can think in terms of G, so you can play G minor pentatonic or G major pentatonic, or maybe a bluesy mixture of those two things. So. And of course you can't go too far wrong throwing in some big Ronson-esque bends as well. So. I do love Ronson's tone on this tune and on the whole Aladdin Sane album. I'm assuming it was achieved with his famous setup of the Les Paul through Marshall stacks. That's what it sounds like to me, but I don't know for certain. I know that this record was made at Trident Studios in Soho in London, engineered by the great Ken Scott, who started off as a Beatles engineer, worked with all kinds of great people, a fantastic producer and engineer. And I'm using my Les Paul, which is a 59 reissue through a Marshall, a Studio Vintage Series Marshall, which is based on a Marshall Plexi, but it's not quite as terrifyingly loud as the real thing, though it still does go pretty loud. And in this small studio I do need to use a bit of attenuation, which is coming from the Universal Audio aux box, which is just sitting on top. I've got that connected between the cabinet and the speaker, and I can just turn down the volume. I'm not actually recording through that. It has got a recording output, but I'm just recording straight through the microphones which I've got set up in front of the cab, and that's giving me my basic tone. I'm actually bridging together the two channels on the Marshall, which is quite a common thing to do on this style of amp, and that means you kind of get the best of both worlds. You've got two channels, you've got a high treble channel and a normal channel. You can blend those together until you get the character of sound that you want. And that's my basic tone. I'm just using the bridge pickup on this guitar, and all of the distortion is coming from the amp. And I'm fairly pleased with that tone. I think it's got a little bit of the Ronson vibe happening there. Obviously it doesn't sound exactly the same as a huge Marshall stack. It doesn't have that same low end weight, but I think it's got a little bit of that going on. No pedals for the basic sound, but when I was soloing I did kick on a couple of pedals, and I've got a wah-wah pedal down here, and one of the tricks that Ronson was known for was using a wah-wah pedal, not to create the wah-wah-wah sound, though he did sometimes do that, but mainly using it as a tone control. So just moving the pedal around, finding a spot where it sounded good, and then just leaving it there as kind of a filter. And that didn't seem to work for the main riff of this tune, but it did sound good when I used it for the lead guitar stuff. And I also kicked on the Analog Man Beano Boost pedal as well, which just sort of thickens up the sound, gives you a bit more of a lead guitar tone. So that sounds like this. That's it for this week's video. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you would like a tab, that is of course going to be up on the Patreon page alongside my whole huge archive of other tabs and backing tracks. Thanks very much for watching. I will see you next time.